Welcome to the first episode of a weekly podcast called WTF. What the Footy? Two Yanks shooting blanks about Australian rules football. And that's about all it is. I'm one of your hosts, Robert Gregory. Alongside me, looks like to my what? Left. Everyone else is right.
Right. Yes.
Newly retired sports writer from the Pittsburgh Tribune Review, former beat writer for covering the NFL's Pittsburgh Steelers, former beat writer covering Major League Baseball's Pittsburgh Pirates. Say hello to Joe Rutter.
Hello, and that was almost like a John Oliver-esque welcome there you gave us with the three welcomes. So I felt like I was
it's
among royalty.
I mean it's the first show,
Yeah,
and I feel like we got to pull out most of the stops. We're not going to tell all the secrets today,
that's right.
but I feel like
Coming
that's
back
something
to
we
the
got to do.
Yeah,
That's something we got
and
to do.
as the audience can see, if they're watching, we have our apparel on, our hats.
We have our allegiances.
Our allegiances.
We are wearing our allegiances.
Yes, we are.
And for those that don't know, go ahead and dip your head there, Joe, so we can see. There we go. Joe is a supporter of the Carlton Blues.
Carlton Blues.
And I am there's the Guernsey. There's the Guernsey that he's going to model later, right?
Private viewing
Okay.
only.
Okay, yeah, that's the platinum subscription plan, folks. I like the Melbourne Demons. When I started getting into Australian rules football, I was told I needed an allegiance, so I picked the worst team in the league, and at the time that was the Melbourne Demons. Well, what do you know? They won the premiership in 2021, and then I've been kind of middling ever since. And there's been a lot of the angst here and there. We're gonna get into that too. But anyway, that's how my allegiance went. How did you get to be a Carlton fan?
1980s when ESPN showed, I think it was the finals. They showed a lot of games in the 1980s when they were looking for programming, especially late at night. It might have been live back then, for all I know. But I remember being out or coming home from the bars, and Carlton always seemed to be on. They had I guess he was a midfielder named Bruce Dole. Had the comb over and the long hair, big bald spot in the middle with a headband, and he just looked like
Look at you,
the coolest guy
look at
ever.
you throwing out names from 40 years ago.
And he just captivated me, and I loved watching him run around. And Carlton was good, and they won the premiership a couple times. And I liked them. And then, of course, as you get older and life takes place, I stepped away. I didn't follow it. ESPN quit showing the games. It was at least 30 years, maybe longer, and I really didn't pay much attention. Then Rob happened to discuss it one day with me last year around the start of the season and got me back into it. And I said, well, if I'm going to pick up where I left off, I got to, I liked Carlton back then. I'm going to like Carlton now. And lo and behold, find out that Carlton is now among one of the bottom feeders of the league as well.
Well, I mean, that's a little harsh, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I guess they did go pretty far in the playoffs a couple of years ago, but I guess they haven't won it in about 3 decades, maybe. And it seems like they're a blue blood that has fallen on hard times, to use a Yank term, a blue blood team.
There you go.
That an old prestigious old guard team that has fallen on hard times. And last year, while still rooting for Carlton, even though they didn't make the finals, I also became enamored with the Gold Coast Suns and their catchy game-winning song, and I latched onto them and rooted for them as well. But Carlton is my team.
We got to figure out how to get music on this show, so we can play that theme. Every week that they win,
Yes.
we are the sons of the Gold Coast squad, or however it goes. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I can
Joe's always sending me every time they're win or lose. Anytime they play, he's sending me the YouTube video of the Gold Coast theme song because he loves it so much.
Yeah, I do. And with Carlton getting plastered this week, having a horrendous third quarter,
we'll get into that.
Gold Coast winning, it was an appropriate time to break it out again. Made me feel better in my agony of defeat for Carlton.
Which there was plenty of, but like I said, we will get into that. Let's just make sure people know what they are not going to get from this podcast. Okay, they are not going to get educated takes for the most part, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get piercing analysis. Okay, you can go to the experts on AFL.com and on their fantastic app. Yes, I'm pimping them a little bit. Maybe they kick us something back, right?
As you should.
As I should. Yeah, we're just here to have fun. We're just two guys on the East Coast that like to watch. We are total casuals when it comes to this sport. But we do get into it. We don't understand maybe a quarter or half of the rules, and that's probably being conservative.
Yeah.
But we enjoy footy. We enjoy watching footy. We enjoy talking about footy. And so we've been talking about doing something like this for, I don't know, what, 6-7 months.
Exactly. And, people will feel free if we do get interactions with people, feel free to educate us. Because
Oh my God, torch us, please.
Yes.
That's the only way we're going to learn.
And learn.
Yes.
And
Yes.
have our commitment solidified by learning more about this and understanding some of these rules. But the thing I think we bring to this that's fun is we can compare it to American sports and how it is over here.
Oh, yeah.
The whole free agency thing is just amazing to me. And just some of the things that happen during the year.
Requests for trades. To me, that's the best one.
Yeah, that is. And, and a lot of that stuff, going down with teams making offers to other players that are known to come out before the season's even over. And it's just, mind-boggling. It seems like there's no tampering whatsoever and that you're just allowed to try to rate other teams. And it just and the low salaries. I mean, I think that actually makes this more attractive to me that they have they just got their first $2 million a year player.
Yeah. Oh my God, the money.
Yeah. And they had a record 57 that made over $1 million. And I'm like, good for them. I mean, you're talking
absolutely
that, I covered the NFL where players are signing contract. Quarterbacks are making $50 million a year. Receivers are making $25 million to $30 million. It's nice to see
I mean, these AFL salaries are just mind-boggling, but in the other direction, right?
Yes.
When they're having kids and having the vapors over having a $2 million man, to us, I mean, yesterday was the first day of sort of tampering in the NFL, and you saw numbers yesterday of players changing hands, including a receiver that came to the Steelers that got 3 years, 58, 59 million.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the moon compared to the AFL.
Yeah, it is. And unlike it seems like in the AFL, a lot of these top stars, they try to sign them up, but it seems like there are a lot of top players that hit free agency where the NFL tries to get their players signed up before they can get to free agency.
Right.
Lock them up for that. So that's
exactly. Lock them up. That's right.
But it's been very and very interesting, that at least from the AFL perspective, after the season ended last year, it seemed like, boom, they were right into the trade period, right into free agency. They went right at it. And then there was this lull and it went through the holidays here. And I know I was itching for March to get here. So good old footy.
Oh, yeah. What did I say when I heard that first horn before Sydney Carleton? Big smile on my face because it's a horn you're not going to hear anywhere else.
You're not. And it
is a horn exclusive to the AFL, and it's phenomenal. Put a huge smile on my face.
Yes, it is. So shall we get into some
topics? Let's get into why I decided that we should start this week. All right. You want to talk about WTF, right? Two Yanks shooting blanks. Here we go. Okay. Story came out. And we'll preface this by saying that Sydney and Carleton was the first match of the opening round this past weekend. In fact, they played Thursday past.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll talk a little bit more about the game itself. Carleton was in it at the half. Sydney went on a tear in the third term.
Yeah.
Carleton loses by, 63 points. Okay. Sam Doherty. is a former Carlton Blue. I think he retired last year even.
He did, in which he retired, I think, with one game left, which I thought was weird. Why not finish the
Yeah,
year?
yeah,
But yes,
yeah,
he
yeah,
did
yeah,
retire last year.
yeah. Well, he is still associated with the club.
Yes, he
Okay.
was a former co-captain, played 170 games, I believe, with them.
Yeah.
Well
I
known.
mean, he's a name. I
Yes.
mean, he's known. So Carlton gets, waxed. Okay. They get humbled in the second half of this game. They lose big. He calls a pal of his, was it Daniel Garange?
Mm-hmm.
Calls a pal, leaves a voicemail. Pretty spicy because he's not happy. Joe, you've got the details.
Yeah, let me pull up here some of the things he said. That was actually pretty interesting. He said exactly what happened again last night is the same crap that happens in every other game. When the game's
Let me interrupt you. Mind you, Joe is being nice. I mean, there are plenty of expletives
there are a lot of expletives
in
which I
this
won't,
voicemail. It is
which I won't
spicy.
say.
Oh,
He
yeah,
said,
yeah.
when the game's hot and contested and pressurized, Carlton is good in that environment. But as soon as some team can do somewhat good in the contest, the rest of the game just effing falls to pieces. They get under pressure, they can't get a hold of the ball, and they're just an absolute effing crap show, for lack of a better word.
That was very good. You did well.
Essentially, because the game gets somewhat slower and there's more open brand footy, that's when Carlton is effing horrible. Basically, you smack our mids again this year, and we'll be effed going off last night. And what he was referencing was a lot of last year, I guess. Carlton seemed to disappear in the second half, blow leads, and fall apart. And
Right.
exactly what happened in the opener against Sydney.
Well, in the opener, it was let me see, it was 28-18 at the half.
Yes.
Carlton had a 10-point lead. The advantage grew to 22,
Yes,
I believe,
in the third quarter.
In the third quarter, and then Sydney, and this is where we can discuss this a little bit too. Is it Sydney sleepwalking for like the first 2 quarters and 3-4 minutes? Because they hang 72 points in the third quarter on Carlton, and all of a sudden Carlton is shell shocked.
Yeah, and
that is what Doherty is talking about here.
Yeah, and Carlton controlled the tempo in the first half. They were passing a lot. The score was low, but they were controlling the pace, controlling the ball, seemed to have a good plan. And then once they faced a little adversity, they just crumbled. Now, this is an aside. I can't say that I witnessed this personally because for some reason in the States here, FS2 telecast the game. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, an hour into it, as we're starting the third quarter, they switched.
You're going to get us hung with Fox Sports on the first episode.
They switched to the World Baseball Classic, and I didn't know this only lasted 10 minutes. I'm freaking out. I can't find the game anywhere. I finally get it on the radio, on the app, listen to that. And by the time
which is phenomenal, by the way. If there's any way to enjoy footy, it's with the broadcasters over there. They're doing the radio calls because it's incredible.
Oh, it was incredible, except for me being frustrated at my team giving up goal after goal after goal. And by the time I realized I got back and tried the channel again, they actually had the game back on. But by that time, Carlton was so far behind, and it was so late in the contest that it was just like not worth even watching. So I'd like to thank FS2 for switching the game over, maybe putting me out of my misery. But I would have been able to give you a better analysis of what happened. But oh well.
The first and last episode apparently of What the Footy. No, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Well, let's finish this story. So Doherty leaves this voicemail. Were you finished with the voicemail, by the way?
I think that was the nuts and bolts.
I mean, that's the gist of it, right? Yeah. Okay, so he leaves this voicemail on his friend, Danny's voicemail. Well, Dan has a podcast too. It's called Dan Does Footy, which was going to be the name of our podcast until I found out it was taken. But anyway.
We don't have a Dan either, but that's...
Oh, well, I mean, I thought we could work around that. But anyway. Dan takes his voicemail and apparently, unilaterally, without telling anybody, including his buddy Sam, he airs it all on his podcast. So now Sam's in a little bit of a pickle because he's supposed to be associated with the Blues, but he's trashing the Blues. And as a result, they've told him he can't be associated with the team and their functions until I think it's week 8.
Something like that. It's a while.
It's the going round, I think, part of the schedule, and they want him back for that. But
Yeah, he was
I'm just like, WTF? What the footy on this? I mean, is this guy your friend or not? Why is he throwing you under the bus like that?
Yeah, that was the other thing, is why is he doing that? And it seemed to me a big overreaction on Carlton's part, because he didn't say anything that the fans probably didn't
Well,
know
I was
or
gonna
think
say.
themselves. Just didn't come out and say. But I invited him from a speaking engagement Thursday and a day for their home opener.
Yeah.
And now he's
And that was the first brick, and then later on they said, "Listen, you're gonna have to stay away for like what? It's almost 2 months."
Yeah, it seems like for a while. And so now everybody's like, oh, Carlton, woo hoo, wah wah, Carlton can't take a little criticism. So now that's become a big thing. And everybody, trashing on Carlton now, saying that
which they were doing anyway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Carlton and Melbourne in a lot of ways are in the same boat. Now, Melbourne doesn't have the recent pedigree, and I get that. But Melbourne, when they won the premiership, when they won the cup, they had pretty close to a god squad, and they could never follow up. And they've been kind of middling ever since. Same thing, I think, is going on with Carlton. I mean, Carlton is just below that cut line, just below that cut line, just below that cut line.
They are, and they had some really good players last year. Tom de Koning is considered one of the better rucks in the league, which until last year I didn't know what a ruck was. But I've got on that. They had Jack Silvani, who became a free agent. They had and Charlie Curnow, who was one of their best.
Well, players. that's the name we should mention, right?
Yeah, and they lose all three of them in the offseason. 2 to free agency. They trade Charlie Curnow. They're rebuilding around younger players. They get a nice haul back in the Charlie Curnow trade. I'm actually excited because I want to see what these young guys do. And for a half and a few minutes into the third quarter against Sydney and Charlie Curnow, they do well.
Yeah, and Curnow, his first 2 shots on goal, he hits the pole on the first one, misses everything on the second one. Yeah. And of course, you're hearing the Bronx cheers from the Carlton people.
Yeah.
Because, good for him, that traitor that went to Sydney. Right? I mean, that's pretty much it.
But then once they got going in the third quarter, he kicks 3 goals and and the cavern just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper.
Well,
and he was a part of that. And
like I said, it's like Sydney was just sleepwalking. It's like it took them 45 minutes of game time to kind of wake up. But when they did, oh boy, we're talking about the Swans now because, I mean.
And now, I guess they went in heavily favored, top 4 team. And now you can see, as they should be.
Yeah.
Because, they showed, at least in that one game, how good they really are. And Carlton has a lot of work to do. And there's a lot of pressure on them on Thursday night in their home opener.
Yeah, plenty of work to do. Getting back to the voicemail, I just want to say, I know the world is different than when, like, previous generations inhabited this earth. We don't do a lot of consideration for other people anymore. But my God, this is your pal and a voicemail. Don't you give this guy a heads up? Hey, I'm going to use this on my podcast because it's really spicy stuff, and I'm going to generate serious clicks and maybe make $4 out of it. Don't you tell your friend that, though?
I would think so. Or I think you ask for his permission. I don't think you go behind his back and do that. I'm sure Sam didn't want that out there for the world to hear, or the Australian football world.
Well, and that's what he said. He said that was not intended for public ears, and I can see why. Yeah. I mean, my goodness. I mean, how many expletives were in there? 6, 7?
At least. He had a good showing there.
He was putting them together. He was combining them. Oh my goodness!
Impressive use of the language.
Oh, so that's our WTF moment for this week. Yeah. What the footy, and then news broke this morning of a couple Hawthorn players who were in Phoenix. We're here in the States, out in the West. Got a little tuned up, climbed in a scissors lift, and got arrested and spent a night in jail in Phoenix, Arizona.
That's good to hear. And
I
Hawthorne
mean,
was a team that made they had a nice showing actually in the finals last year. And I'm sure that I don't know I haven't heard much about this story, but I'm sure they're counting on these guys to help them get back there this year.
well, all I can say about that is it turns out, Australian athletes are just as stupid as some of our athletes, you know. And to think that they wouldn't get caught. I mean, did they look around? I mean, one of them could have been the lookout, right? I mean, did they
Yeah,
have to get caught doing this? And
true.
why a scissor lift? What I don't understand is, were they able to operate the scissor lift? I don't feel like you could operate the scissor lift unless, you had it, I don't
And
know, started or plugged in or something. I
yeah,
mean, what the heck were these guys doing?
that's a good question. You know more about this story than I do, but athletes, and especially from Australia athletes, drinking beer or being tuned up, that's a shocker to me.
Oh, let's not get into the stereotypes in the first episode there, Joe. Come on now. Come on now. All right, let's look at the week that was. We talked about Sydney and Carlton. Sydney scores, what was it, 75
Something like that
in the third quarter. It went from 28 to 18. They led 93-54 at the end of three. They win going away because of the margin of victory and the percentages. They get the top of the ladder going into round number one coming up
Yes.
this week. On Friday, your Gold Coast Suns and former Demon Christian Petrarca 125-69 over Geelong, which is a little bit surprised because the Cats were finalists last year, losing to Brisbane.
And they were a favorite in the finals last year and had beaten
Yeah.
Brisbane to get there in the, I guess, preliminary final, which is a tier of their playoffs. And Geelong, but I guess Geelong was missing a couple of good players, Jeremy Cameron being one of them. So I'm not surprised they lost, but to lose that heavily,
Yeah.
maybe Geelong's starting to fall on.
Yeah, maybe not get spanked like that, right?
Yeah, and Gold Coast with Petrarca, your guy, you could speak more on
Oh,
Petrarca.
he was
But,
he was
good.
phenomenal. He looked like the old Christian Petrarca,
Yeah.
and you could tell those last days of the old Melbourne regime, the energy just wasn't there. It just wasn't there with old coach Simon Goodwin. It wasn't there with the cadre of players that they were keeping together because they had won the cup a couple years before, and it just wasn't working anymore. Petrarca gets a new start at Gold Coast, and he was tied for the fantasy lead for that game. I think I think he had 3 goals, he had 28 disposals. I mean, he was all over the place, and he looked like the old Christian Petrarca that everybody knows and loves.
Yeah, and I guess he had some problem. He described it as a life-threatening injury, which I don't know much about, but I guess maybe that curtailed him last year, and he wasn't the same player as he had been before. So maybe it took him a year to get back, get his feet under him, and play well again. And he looked phenomenal in that game. That was he was a highlight for sure for Gold Coast, and you can see why Gold Coast this year they're not going to don't sleep on them. They're not going to be the underdogs anymore.
Oh, no. And you know what? Good on Christian Petrarca. I still don't like these cooking commercials that he was making during last year. And whatever, Christian, whatever you got to do to make some money. I know you don't get paid in the Australian Football League, so I hear you. I hear you. But yeah, good on him. Good on him for doing that. So early game on Saturday was Greater Western Sydney beating Hawthorn 122-95. That's another game with a plus 30 margin. And I think if you're the AFL at this point of the weekend, you're like, wow, what could we have done to schedule this better?
Yeah, and it wasn't like they picked, other than Carlton, every other team I think was in the playoffs last year. So you've got good quality teams. You're not expecting blowouts. And
Right.
we're used to the NFL where so many games are tight going into the fourth quarter. You and I think we're both surprised to see that wasn't the case.
No.
In a lot of these games this weekend. And the only thing else that I could add from Sydney, I didn't see anything of that game, but they have the final siren video on, I believe, Amazon Prime, a 4-part series. Toby Green was mentioned heavily in that, and especially for his suspensions and trying to play a nicer role this year, and apparently got through the game without incident. So that was one thing I was kind of watching to see where they
without what, like breaking somebody's nose or taking out a kneecap or something like that.
Anybody in the face, anything like that.
So. Yeah, good on him. Good on him.
Yeah.
Good on him. You know what? A lot of progress this past weekend in some places in the AFL. So, and then Saturday night, everything changes because Western is at Brisbane, the defending 2-time premiership and Western comes away with a 5-point win. And now all of a
Yeah.
sudden, you got to start talking about Western, don't you?
Yeah, and Marco Bontempelli, I'm going to butcher names here because I'm not as familiar with them.
Hey,
He was also
we're
a part of
Yanks shooting blanks. It's okay.
That's right. But he was part of that final siren video, so I got to know him a little better, and he played really well in that game. Didn't know much about Western because they just missed the playoffs last year. I think they finished 9th. And yeah,
They were
played a really
they
good
were the
game.
best team ever to miss the playoffs.
Yes, they were, and it was a really good match. Really tight throughout, back and forth, and kind of till the end when Western jumped out there and grabbed control of it. But Brisbane, the two-time defending champs, they looked a little vulnerable, kind of fell apart toward the end, and I was surprised to see that because a lot of their big names kind of folded a little bit down the stretch.
Yeah, I thought Western, despite what Sydney did to Carlton, I thought Western was the most impressive showing of the weekend. I think that was probably the biggest surprise. And Brisbane, the Lions end up losing 4 starters for their game this week through 1 game to 3 game suspension. So they're vulnerable going into this week's game. Who they got this week? What's my crawl say? What's my crawl say?
I'm not sure.
They've got Sydney.
Yes.
They go to Sydney this week.
Yes.
So now the 2-time premiership Lions, they're looking at 0-2 in the face.
Yeah, especially if I think was it Harry Edwards, Harrison Edwards, the guy, the defender, he got a 3-game suspension, which I don't know if that's been changed on appeal, but he got a 3-game suspension for elbowing a guy in the head. He said accidentally. You don't know whether it was or wasn't. He got a 3-game suspension. The player got concussed.
I don't know. Wink, wink. We might know. Wink, wink.
Well, it's hard to tell in this game because it's so physical.
Well, and that's why we like it so much. Because it's how do we describe it? That we need something when the NFL ends, right?
Yes.
So the Super Bowl is like what, first, second week of February. And then if you're following the calendar, you've got the draft, you've got mini camps. Training camp, though, doesn't start till late July, right?
Yes.
Well, that's where Australian rules football comes in. If you don't mind getting up at 1 a.m., by the way, because that's how it is on the East Coast. They're what, 14 hours ahead of us.
Yeah.
That's where the AFL comes in and kind of fills that gap. That fills that gap of violence that we crave here in the United States.
Yeah, and everybody makes fun of the NFL like with these off-season workouts as football in shorts. Well, Australian rules football, they play football in shorts.
I was just gonna say,
they're hitting, they're jumping, they're smacking people. I love it before the game, before they throw the ball in, where they're shoving each other pushing each other back and forth, and really like going hard at each other. And that's just part of the culture there. And I'm surprised more players don't sustain injuries from these things, but they're a tough breed of football player or footy player, and I like to see it.
Are they tougher than a woodpecker's nose?
Or a woodpecker's lips or beak or whatever.
Oh, whatever it was. Did I screw that up? I screwed that up on the first episode.
Of course I did. Last year. That's why you got to listen to the radio feed sometimes.
That's exactly right. That's right. What I like is they're pushing and shoving and hitting each other, and all the while, both of them have smiles on their face. Like there's nothing wrong with this.
Yeah, and most times the referees are just looking the other way, like play on, and keep the
big grins on their faces as they're shoving each other and giving forearm shivers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
good stuff.
You get your share of blood too. So.
Oh yeah. Again, why we like to watch.
Yes.
But anyway, last game of the weekend was Collingwood taking down St. Kilda by 12, and as disappointing as some of these, as disappointing as Brisbane's loss was, I almost think St. Kilda was the most disappointing performance of the weekend, given the way they went all in on the offseason.
They did. They went and had a big spending spree, gave a big contract to two of my Carlton guys, Tom DeConing and Jack Silvani, and and they spent a lot of money. They're up. They have a lot of guys that are making well over $1 million. I don't know if they spent.
Yeah, they threw big money at Nasaya the Messiah.
Exactly, Nasaya the Messiah. They've had they've got a lot of reasons to be optimistic this year, and they came out and lost. And a lot of people were picking them to be on the fringe of making the tournament this year, the final, if you will, and
Yeah.
so they're going to be a team. They're the
Which
most
is
scrutinized team in the league.
which is insane to me that they would put the pedal down. Like I said, go all in on this year because they had such a great second half of the year last year. To only be expected to compete for one of the last final spot, and this is with a playoff field that has been expanded by two teams this year. They
Yeah,
actually have a wild card round this year.
yeah, they have a better chance of getting in than before, and there's a
And
lot of
and they're still like on the edges, which is crazy to me.
yeah, they're and a lot of people aren't even picking them to win a game if they get in. So they've got a lot to prove. They spent a lot of money. I guess they got to see how these guys coexist with each other. I did not see any of that match, but I was a little surprised by the result given how much attention was going to St. Kilda going into the season.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think of an appropriate comparison in our leagues to what St. Kilda did in the off season. And I was kind of having trouble with that because it was just what do I say? What do I say? It was just so violent the moves they were making. I mean, it was just so obvious what they were
Yeah.
doing.
It's not like the Dodgers in baseball where they already were a high spender
Right.
and keep adding to that. It wasn't like they're the Yankees or even the Red Sox. They were more of maybe it's like the Marlins of '97 when they spent all that money.
Oh,
To go
that's a
all
good
in.
one. That's a good one.
When they got Bobby Bonilla and all those players
Yeah.
and Gary Sheffield and Moises
Yeah.
Alou, maybe that's it. And they won a World Series. Then they dismantled everything after that 1 year because they
Right.
couldn't afford those kind of salaries. Maybe that's a comparison. But yeah, and they've got a way to go though. They're not going to be undefeated. They're not going to roll through like everybody seemed to think, at least when they started signing these guys, that they would do.
Yeah. 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 Here's the schedule for this week. Starting on Thursday, we got your boys, Richmond and Carleton. Are you expecting a little more from the Blues this time?
I'm expecting a lot more from the Blues, but I guess
Yeah.
last year at this point, just as I was dipping my toe back into this, I believe you informed me that they blew a big lead to lose to Richmond in their opening game last year, and that was one of the biggest upsets, I guess, in Carleton history, maybe even league history. And so that set the tone for their season, which figures, why I'm rooting for this team now because they can't win big games. So
we're gonna talk about late rallies here in a second when we talk about this schedule. And now I'm not gonna be happy about it. But anyway, on Friday, Essendon and Hawthorn, Greater Western Sydney is a late game on Friday. Saturday, Geelong Fremantle. Let's see. We got that Sydney Brisbane matchup, which like I said, I think Brisbane's looking at 0-2. I think and they've got some questions to answer, I think,
Yeah, they do.
Now, with that said, it's not like they started with the world on fire last season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they were still able, in fact, they lost that first game during the final and was able to battle back to win the premiership again. So, I mean, I don't think we're sounding alarm bells right now on the Lions, but
No, I
I
don't
mean,
think so either.
You don't want to be 0-2, though. I mean, come on.
No, you don't. You want to get into that top four, so you have that margin for error, so you can have that loss, which I love the ladder format. I love the fact if you're top four, you could get a loss. If the Pittsburgh Steelers had that chance, I'd have a playoff victory. I might still be the coach of the team, because you can lose a game if you're in the top four and keep going in the playoffs. You got to get to that top four, which
that was a fantastic comparison. Thank you for that. Thank you for making both Yinzer watchers happy about that. The rest of Saturday, Collingwood, Adelaide. We got our first look at Adelaide, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide, and then Sunday, the late game is Gold Coast to West Coast. And let me just say a word about West Coast because it just seems like there is not one person on this planet that has anything remotely decent to say about West Coast. The Eagles, if you listen to everybody, just don't have it going on this year. I mean, there are several people that picked them to go winless.
Yeah,
which I think would be just an incredible feat.
It's got to be hard, but they won only one game last year.
Yeah.
And was that I don't know who they beat. Was it Richmond? But yeah, to win only one last year, that's, and go 1-22, 23, whatever it was, now to maybe go 0 for the whole season. That's that's worse than the Cleveland Browns a few years ago.
So, I mean, I know my allegiance is to the D's.
Yeah.
But, a little part of me is going to be rooting for the Eagles this year, every year or every round. Every round.
Yeah, you want to be competitive. You don't want to be blown out every week.
Well, I mean, even if they're getting blown out here and there, I mean, you want to see some competition and you want to see them get in the win column. I mean, nobody likes overs. Nobody. Absolutely nobody. So that's the late game on Sunday. The early game is my D's. Their opener against the Saints, St. Kilda. And of course, plenty has happened since the last time these two teams met.
Yes.
Including,
right. I just realized. Yes.
Yeah. What was it? 46 points down. St. Kilda came back in the fourth quarter of that game last year and beat the D's by Messiah the Messiah with the tying and go-ahead goals or something like that.
It was very late too, I believe. I still have it on DVR. Had not watched it yet. I'm saving that for a special occasion.
I think both of those goals came in the last minute of play. It was the biggest comeback after 3 quarters in league history. And it also became sort of the linchpin being pulled on what was the Melbourne Demons, because their coach, Simon Godwin, was sacked not long after that. They had been scuffling all season and just could not put it together. Again, they still had a lot of that core from that championship team a couple years ago. But this embarrassment to St. Kilda really was the linchpin for changes to be made.
Yeah, and you can see why. And I mean, they've still got some guys there, Max Vaughn being one of them.
Oh, I knew you were going to mention my Maxie.
I know you like Max. But yeah, it's a new look, and I don't know. Melbourne is not picked to do well either this year.
No, they're like 13th to 15th in an 18-team league, which not good.
Yeah, so this is a big week. It's a big test for you guys to see what you can pull out.
Clayton Oliver is gone.
That's right.
Charlie Sparrow's gone. Of course, Petrarca's gone. Stephen May retired because he tends to get into a little bit of trouble too. And a new coach, Stephen King, and they're trying to go youth.
By the way, not the
well. I mean, we'll have to see after maybe round 4, round 5. Maybe the author will be a better coach. I don't know. We'll see. But there's
not as scary of an outcome for the D's.
Well,
to use one of my patented dumb jokes.
No, that was a good one. That was a JAJ right there. Absolutely. We'll get into that later on too.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the D's open up with St. Kilda, and I did look back. The D's haven't won a match since August 1st of last year.
Wow.
When they whooped up on West Coast.
Yeah.
So there you go.
But I'm looking at actually been Carlton's last win last year.
Is that right?
It may have been. I'm not. Again, we are not experts. Educate us.
No. No, but I'm looking at this schedule, and again, Sydney Brisbane just kind of sticks out to me. Like, So can Sydney replicate what they did in the third quarter against Carlton, and can Brisbane overcome the loss of 4 starters and not fall into a 0-2 hole?
That's a big question, and
those are my questions, and I know which one is more likely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more likely for Sydney to play well. It's going to be tough for Brisbane because you're missing a lot of the heart of your team there.
And the thing I don't like about this is, now I haven't seen the future schedules, but you saw how Sydney was in the opening round, and Brisbane is the 2-timer, right? Don't you want them in full strength against each other, even though it's early in the season, just so you can see where you are?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that if Sydney hangs another 130 on them, and maybe beats them by 40, 50 points again, it's really not a fair representation of who they are.
No, it isn't. I don't know if they play again down the road in the second half of the year, but It's an early matchup that might not be indicative of the way these two teams end up at the end of the year. But with
Yeah.
Charlie Curnow there, I'll pay a little more attention than I normally would. And my wife is a fan of Brisbane. She's jumped on the
Do we have to get into this?
Well, not now. We can save that for a future
Okay.
episode.
Yeah.
If we have an episode too,
Yeah.
we can
Front
maybe
runner.
get that.
Front runners.
So we will.
Loves Tom Brady. Front runners.
That's right.
I didn't. That wasn't out loud, was it? No, I didn't think it was. Joe, final thoughts as we close this show.
Final thought is, and I found this out. I don't remember which team it was. Maybe it was. Well, I don't know which team it was. There was a team that did not play in the opening round that put my hand up. I want to play in the opening round next year, which leads me to wonder, why doesn't everybody play in the opening round? Why isn't it only a limited number of people? I know maybe they're showcasing this. The other teams had a bye, but why, if this is your official kickoff weekend, why not have as many teams that want to play? And this is maybe the beauty of this sport, that we don't understand the origins, the history of it. But why shouldn't everybody, if you want to play, get another team and play? I don't understand why it has to be limited to however many matches, 4 or 5, that there were last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either. I'm totally shooting blanks on this. Okay, this is the casual talking. My first thought is the fact that, unlike us here in the States, a lot of these teams share facilities. The Melbourne Cricket Ground gets used over and over and over and over again, right? Sydney Cricket Ground gets used by a couple teams. I mean, Melbourne the most. So I kind of want to say that it might be a facility thing, but again, I don't know. But I'm with you. I mean, now listen, after watching your Blues get trashed, I was glad the D's did not play, okay? I was glad that I was not in your position, on Friday morning, because, we could post screenshots of our texts about, what had happened that morning, and your angst with Fox Sports 2 and everything going on. And after all that, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm kind of okay with the D's, especially given the way they ended last year and all the tumult in that organization. Maybe another week isn't such a bad thing.
And it gave you a chance to, worry about, you didn't have to worry about the time change. You got past that. Now you can watch your first match with the little, maybe an extra hour of sleep, if you will, and not worry about it.
I don't know. When it's 3 a.m., does it matter if you get an extra hour of sleep?
True, yeah. Well, at least instead of 3:30, the Blues play at 4:30 on Thursday morning, so I can sleep an extra hour before I watch them play.
I've got a great schedule this week. Their game is what, 12? I think it's 12:15. The D's, the D's in St. Kilda on Sunday morning, is 12:15. So I mean, that's totally doable. That's absolutely doubleable.
And I think
you know what?
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we can talk about, our angst with the schedules at a later podcast, but it is challenging when, most of your kickoffs are at 3 a.m.
Yeah, and I was going to say next week we can discuss, based on the broadcast schedule, which I don't know yet. I keep checking is what games are broadcast, which aren't over
All
here.
right.
What we can see, what we can't.
Yes,
a lot of that guides what we can talk about. So
yes. We have several bones to pick with you, AFL. One of them is the fact that you guys can't seem to get your schedule together and tell people what it is. Yeah, and you're killing us here in the States, because we like to have a little bit of heads up. Just a little bit of heads up, guys. That's all we're asking for.
Exactly. We can't get your merchandise either, because, that's more about with the tariffs. But I would like to be able to buy more AFL merch. And
Joe, that's another podcast. That's a different podcast, I think.
Yeah. We'll save the griping on that one too.
That's right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Thanks for joining us on the premiere episode of WTF, What the Footy. If you do find us on the socials when we do get them set up, on X, on Facebook, on Twitter, give us some likes, hit subscribe, make us happy with your attention to us.
Yeah, and hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have figured out where you can see us, where you can reach us, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's, if people do happen to watch this, we're going to have a mailbag segment, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Definitely.
absolutely,
You got to
absolutely.
get questions first. People got to find them.
Well, and probably censored, I would
Yeah,
think,
true.
because again, we've been going for almost 45 minutes when we thought we'd only go 20, and so I'm still thinking this may or may not be a good idea. I don't know. We'll find out.
Hey, I'll keep doing it whether people are listening or not. It's therapeutic for me. So,
Say goodbye, Joe.
okay, goodbye.
For Joe Rutter, I'm Robert Gregory. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Showtime.
Showtime.
I thought that went well.
That was good. Maybe a little long, but
Yeah,
I thought I was comfortable with it.
I don't. Maybe in the future, I don't think we'll break
I didn't
down
feel like
every
we were forcing anything. Do you?
No, I don't think so.
Ah.
I don't know if we need to talk about every game every week, but
No. Well,
Yeah.
there were only 5.
yeah,
So I mean, in the future, we'll just pick out a couple.
yeah,
You know.
and we can get more into the issues and the things we don't understand, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens when he.